Hello there guys, gals, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Leipalarden and today we are talking about what I have been most excited for since the start of the second Infinite Tech preview. Big Team Battle. Without a doubt, this is the crowning jewel of Infinite and is no doubt the mode that I'll be coming back to time after time. I think it's safe to say that 343 have done a very solid job building this mode, and I found myself enjoying it far more than the 4v4 arena experience. Like last week's video, I'll aim to look at both the positives and negatives of BTB, as while I think the mode is great, it does have its shortcomings. So, let's start off with the positives. The reason why I and so many others love Big Team Battle is that it really lets players go balls to the wall and do whatever the hell they want. Unlike 4v4 where you're somewhat limited in how you want to play due to the smaller player count and more of the game's score being dependent on how well you do, BTB has so many players that you can afford to experiment a bit and do things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get away with in a normal game of Arena. Part of my concern for this mode was that it would be hyper-competitive and serious like a majority of my 4v4 experiences were during last week's play sessions, but thankfully some of that stupid casual harmless fun that I remember from Halo 3 and Reach and 4 has managed to hang around, and I'm here for it. Right off the bat, players are greeted with a massive assortment of weapons and other cool gadgets in your base. So if you're not too keen on the assault rifle sidekick start, you can swap out to a weapon that you're more comfortable with, like the BR, or mix things up a little with a weapon like the shock rifle, which I absolutely love. Honestly, it is the most fun I've had with a weapon in this game, and it's basically just a cooler binary rifle from Halo 5.
He does exactly what I do, but better.
Equipment spawns are plentiful on this map, with repulsors and drop shields being scattered all over the place, with a few grapple shots going spare as well. I found the drop wall to be quite helpful in BTB. Some people criticized it for being underpowered, but I think it fits much better with this style of map and with these types of objective modes. Throwing one down to give my teammates cover while capping an objective or holding a lane really gave us the leg up in certain combat situations, and the increased equipment cap of 5 by default I think is an excellent choice. I love the freedom that the game provides you to just go apeshit with all this stuff, and to me, that's what Halo is all about, combining elements of the sandbox to do stuff that might be stupid, but occasionally works, or at the very least creates some really funny memories. Loot caves are the type of interactive elements on maps that I've been wanting to get out of a Halo game for as long as I can remember. I was initially really worried that your personal AI would just carry on being a chatterbox in your head reciting information to the player that you already knew, but this mechanic changes my mind about that completely. I think that 343 have made a very smart decision to have your AI be the one to open up these loot caves and kind of tap into that interactive map element, and in many ways coincides with the fantasy that I think many of us have of being your own Spartan with a personal AI like Chief and Cortana. It's my hope that these types of interactive elements will be plentiful and varied in other BTB maps. If I had one gripe, however, it'd be that the door takes way too long to open. I got caught with my pants down too many times.
Let me in! Let me in!
But otherwise, it's awesome. 343, more stuff like this, please. This is kind of a good as well as a bad for me, but Fragmentation is a decent map overall. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a great map. Definitely not up there with the likes of Valhalla, Sandtrap or Zanzibar, but Fragmentation does have its pros. For one, the map size. I can't see this map working well for 8v8 as there'd be a lot of wandering around trying to find people, but with the 12v12 player count I found that encounters were happening regularly. However, that does lead me to another issue, which is that the map feels less big team battle-y and more independent kind of team battle-y. I'll explain what I mean. Fragmentation seems to be split up into 3 different lanes. Both right and left sides are basically glorified choke points, and the middle is your vehicle lane. You've got the most clearance to move a vehicle freely through this middle lane, but running down it normally is a death sentence due to the amount of vantage points and lack of cover, so naturally most players who aren't in vehicles are going to choose either left or right side. In future, I'd like to see more open maps with less cover, less choke points for players to funnel into, and a design philosophy similar to Blood Gulch where it's just a big box canyon, couple of hills. How are you and your team going to make it work? Have maps that are less about forcing conventional gunfights with these choke points and more about the feeling of an open area that you and your team have to make a conscious effort to either hold the line defensively and make the most of the tools at your disposal, or try to creep in slowly and push your enemies back. All in all though, I think Big Team and Fragmentation were both great experiences, and I'm really excited to play more maps, more modes, with more guns, and potentially more people in future. While I don't have too much of a problem with player visibility in 4v4, I think in Big Team all the HUD outlines and other ways to see enemy players was a little overkill and kind of ruined the experience for me. I'm one of those players who plays big team in one of three ways. I'll sit back and snipe, I'll go ham with a BR, or I'll try to be sneaky and flank around in a vehicle or on foot and give the enemies some grief by sitting in their spawn. And because of how the player outline system currently is, it's borderline impossible to do 2/3 of those playstyles now. Sitting back and sniping is definitely still possible, but it's a much harder task when you can be seen from orbit because of how bright your shields are. Along with scope glint being on just about every fucking weapon to the point where looking at players around the corner with a commando or BR trained on a certain spot looks like you've walked onto the set of a J.J. Abrams film. I think the best fix for this would be for the player outline to disappear after about 70 or so meters. That would hopefully allow people to go for some sneaky flanks without getting spotted immediately, and allow for the back of the map camping bitches like me to actually enjoy using the sniper without getting descoped from 30,000 meters away because the AR's range is longer than the list of corruption tied to Gladys Berejiklian and John Barilaro. It's unfortunately no secret that Jeff Steitzer is not in big team battle as the classic Halo announcer. I feel like we've been through this before with a similar high player count mode, but I can't seem to put my finger on it. What was it? Oh yeah, that was it. We gotta get Jeff Steitzer back as the announcer. His presence was sorely missed in big team, and getting multi-kill and other medals felt nowhere near as satisfying without hearing him say it. I'm sure Spartan Lorette is cool, but I got sick of hearing her say, "You make this look easy and you're unstoppable," in place of the classic killing spree and other announcements. Her delivery of certain lines as well felt really robotic.
Enemy captured the flag.
Vehicle health and how it's visualized feels very low-key in this game. Currently the Ghost, and to a lesser extent the Warthog, and most vehicles that are badly damaged and about to explode, don't show the telltale obvious signs that we got in previous Halo games. There's no electrical crackle coming from the front of the banished vehicles like there was in Covenant ones to let you know that now might be a good time to get the hell out. There's not as much smoke or fire coming from UNSC vehicles to let you know that they're low on health either. Vehicle destruction as well is really underwhelming, especially when compared to Halo 3. We need more of a boom and some fireballs when these vehicles explode, as currently it's less of a bang and more of a... Speaking of vehicles, I don't really like the Pelican drop mechanic as much as I thought I was going to. I think vehicle spawns need to be reconsidered and tweaked, and this is where I'd put a clip of me using vehicles.
If I had one!
Come on, come on, come on! No, Kiv, you bastard!
For the most part, the Pelicans only dropped Warthogs and Ghosts, and I think that was mainly tied to how long the matches went on for. I only ever saw heavier vehicles on Capture the Flag matches that were stuck in a stalemate and games that went to the time limit. Also, the entire game is announced to the presence of a vehicle arriving, as opposed to older games where you'd have to roughly calculate how long it would take for a vehicle to respawn and then snag it before anyone else could. Currently, I don't think this gives players enough time or the chance to use these higher end vehicles, which is a massive shame. Also, their vehicle spawn location in the middle of an open field, while practical, made it stupidly easy to camp these vehicles and easily kill someone the moment they got into them. I think having them spawn further back, behind the Forerunner beam towers, would be fairer and safer overall. The Warthog turret reticle I think is a little bit too small at the moment, especially when you stretch your FOV out to those higher settings, and by extension that makes it very accurate for a turret that's spewing out bullets at about 700 rounds a minute. I think it needs to be larger and more in line with how it was in previous Halo games, with more variance to its bullet spread to make it less effective at range. The reticle for the detached turret is a perfect example of what size it should be. Also, vehicle spawns felt very inconsistent between bases. There was a match of Total Control where I was notified by my AI that a Wasp or a Banshee would be dropping in soon, only to have it come down on the other side of the map on the enemy's base. And we didn't get ours till 2 minutes later, and by that point, the enemy team had a Scorpion tank. So yeah, can we get vehicle spawns timed simultaneously? Thank you. Score limit needs to be increased, especially for Slayer. Traditional big team games of 8v8 went to 100 points, and now for 12v12 the score limit remains the same, which to me seems counterintuitive. Seeing as you have considerably more players on the map and therefore more potential for kills, the games of Slayer I played felt like they were over before they had even really started. Definitely up the score to 150 at least for the increase of players. Right, so now onto the nitpicks and bugs. So, crashing issues. I don't think there was one person in my squad of 6 who didn't have their game crash at least once, except for Willis. He never let us forget that.
Have we had a game where nobody crashes? Yeah, me, because I'm on Series X. Even your fucking $6 million PC has had more issues.
Oh, fuck. You're not wrong there, mate. You're not wrong there.
Had some really mad frame dips for some reason or another. Aiming settings reset on first startup and couldn't be fixed until I restarted the game. Sniper spawning on one side of the map while the skewer spawns on the other. I mean, I'd know which one I'd prefer to use.
That was your one warning shot! The next one's going right between your eyes! I warned you! Sayonara, biatch! Come on! What the fuck?
I'd love a training mode option for BTB, even if there's no other players, just so I can get the chance to use these vehicles and explore the map, get an idea of the weapon spawns and whatnot before jumping into a proper game. And I have to reiterate this from my last video, but the motion tracker. The so-called 18 meters that it's currently sitting on feels genuinely useless at times, especially on BTB with so many pathways and other routes that players can take to flank you. The 25 meters that I recommended last time and that many other Halo games have implemented is the bare minimum for how big it should be in this game, and the symbols to identify whether someone is above or below you felt severely needed on Fragmentation where there are so many levels to the map. Otherwise, I thought BTB was great. I had a much more interesting and fun time playing this than 4v4 Arena, and I'm looking forward to playing more once the game releases. Or maybe 343 have another flight scheduled, who knows. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Unfortunately, that does wrap up our coverage of Infinite's second tech preview, though I will be back to making more scripted content in the weeks ahead, leading up to the release of the finished game. If you're keen to see more of my content, drop a like, or better yet, subscribe. You wouldn't. You're way scared.